Good day to you all. Welcome again to Areopa webinars. In this, well, at this moment, a somewhat strange world, depending where you are, can be different of how the coronavirus is hanging on to people. For today, we have a second session on our in our series on the road to SaaS, and our speaker today will be Danny Hellemons. Danny is the development manager or CTO at Schouw Informatisering, and he has been one of the drivers of the change of product development at Schouw Informatisering, which was a originally partner, a VAR partner that had their solution and customers in the Netherlands, slowly was growing internationally, and now started a couple of years ago with the step into, let's say, the SaaS proposition. Before I hand off today's room to Danny, I will first go through the normal slides just for all of us that might have been joining in for the first time today, whatever. Our housekeeping rules. You know about the possibilities of posing questions. We have muted the mic, so it's not possible to speak out, but use the question window to pose your question. I, Luc van Vught, I am your moderator for today. I will pick up your question, and where a simple question that I can answer or if not relates to the topic, pick them up. And others I will pose to Danny. We have agreed that I will step in at any time that makes sense to step in with the questions. So you're welcome to put them in the question window. As ever, this will be recorded. The recording is already running and will be published on Areopa webinars website, or let's say on the website, the channel of YouTube. You can find on our website a link to it. As you can see, we now have had 12 sessions. These are all the recordings we have. It's becoming a nice collection of various topics that relate to our world. And yes, my goal is to get this recording of today on the YouTube channel this evening already. So if you want to replay or share it with your peers or team members, whatever, of course, be free to do that. If you're not yet subscribed to our newsletter, this is the, well, very meaningful link. But okay, you can also find a link on our website if you want to register. Looking forward, that's a nice animation. I didn't check that one well, but we have 4 upcoming webinars. There's a new one. We're working on getting the registration page and all the links set up, but on May 26th, Tobias Venster will do a presentation on interfaces in HL. The other ones were already available. You can subscribe to them. I hope the link will, for Tobias' presentation, will be available on our website in a couple of days. And of course, as ever, we're continuously looking for speakers, and if you can suggest somebody, yourself or somebody else, be welcome to do that. Then the remaining part for my introduction is our thanks to Cornaf being our supporter, our provider to this platform. So it's time, Danny, to hand off the presentation forward to you. I changed now, so it's up to you to share your screen. So enjoy it.
Okay, I'm Danny Hellemons, formerly known as a CTO at Schouw Informatisering. Started 4 years ago, but we've been recently acquired on the 1st of November of last year by Additinally, and now my new job title is has become the principal architect, whatever that means. I'm still doing a lot of the same work, so no worries there. So I'm gonna tell you about our road to SaaS development and delivery in the next 15 minutes or so. And yeah, what we accomplished so far is we until now we have made our first step, build a minimal viable product for the small-sized food companies throughout Europe via our VARs and through our own services departments. for implementation, and now the next step will be to do this also for medium-sized food companies and throughout the world via our new Aption channels and external VARs. So that's where we are right now. So yeah, the next 50 minutes I will talk about our journey. First of all, I had to start. I came in at Schouw 4 years ago, and there was almost no product development. And then the first thing I stated to our CEO owner at that moment, John Schouw, was, okay, John, understand one thing: product development is not a one-off. To stay the best, you have to build the club, run the team, build the brand, and develop the merchandise. And do that by step and not in a big bang approach on process and improving yourself step by step, because you cannot do it all at once. So here's my agenda for today. So yeah, welcome to you all. It's nice of you to listen to me for the next hour. This is my agenda. So actually the road from product development, reorganization, the DevOps journey, going to AppSource, all these kind of things, as you can read up on the slide, but I will walk you through step by step. Yes, we should start here, I guess, because a lot of people came out to me last year, especially in Vienna during Directions EMEA. You must be superhumans. Actually, we are not. We are just a step-by-step approach and working with our people at Schouw, but also working with partners, MVPs like Luc, Arend-Jan, helping us out, joining forces with Microsoft. So be aware, you don't just have to think and do it all yourself. You can combine with partners and MVPs and Microsoft to find your way, and I would always suggest a step-by-step approach and not try to do it all in one go. So we're not superhumans. If we can, you should be able to do it yourself too. The first thing we had to change, and I see that as a lot of NAV or Business Central partners, mostly they are actually 2 in 1. So they're doing product development, but mostly for customers. So actually they're more like in project development, building a code base, which they then implement on any customer and customize the hell out of it, instead of building a product to fit multiple customers and customize on top of that. So that's an attitude I had to change at Schouw. That took me about 2 years. I'm stubborn, but the people here are stubborn too. Typical Dutch, I guess. So yeah, let's take you through the road from becoming a true ISV, our approach. First, I led the PD department. So PD stands for product development. And first I had to learn to stand on their own 2 feet, because they were entangled with the services, the implementation teams. So they were merely accepting assignments from whatever projects. So actually there was no product development, there was only project development. So I had to disconnect that in process and planning, and we did that step by step. So everyone could get adjusted to that. Then, yeah, during our project Tessel, that was the code name for reaching that first step, and the minimal viable product for small food companies throughout Europe. We also rearranged our product development team to become more like an ISV. So not just a cost center, but becoming self-sufficient, a profit and loss center, so to say, as well. So, but then you have to think differently, because you need multiple channels to earn your living. So you don't think just customers, you think about VARs, because you need more than your own VAR to sell your product. Otherwise, yeah, you won't have a lot of money to spend to build your product. You also have to think about not the customers you know of in the Dutch market, but global customers. And don't assume that you think that you know that what customers need outside of the Netherlands, because we actually don't know. So they had to learn that the hard way. And of course, you have to do this in an agile rhythm, because you need feedback, especially because you don't know what customers really want. So you build your basic functionality, minimal viable. You throw this in the market, you get feedback, and you go on to the next version of that app. Of course, you have to think about delivering this all to your VARs as well. And delivering is more than just delivering code. I will get back later on this topic. That's what we call DoD, or definition of done. There's a lot in it. So actually, if you look at our hours spent last year on the project, it's 1 hour of development, and that's even including unit tests. So that's halfway. So half an hour of development, half an hour of unit test scripts, creating them, developing them. Then you get another 3.5 hours on top of that to comply to the definition of done. So be aware of that it takes a lot of time, but then you're really delivering a product instead of just code. During delivery, you should also think about VAR training and support programs, of course. So next topic is, we started off there, use the whole power of the Dynamics 365 Business Central, of course, using the modern development tools, Visual Studio Code and Git. So we changed all that also from a DevOps experience and a development experience. Leveraging all of Microsoft 365. Give me a second and I will come to that. Developed from scratch, so no reuse of code, no refactoring. And we finished, that's just a summarization of what we did last year, 31 apps last year. So we used actually, going from left top to right bottom, we used Business Central, of course, Power Automate, at that time it was still called Flow, Power Apps, I will show you some, Power BI, embedded and extended. We used Office quite heavily, for example, the Outlook add-in, but more than that, also SharePoint. We used Logic Apps for integration and mapping and transformation challenges. We used the Azure platform and Azure services, functions, service bus, etc., to combine apps and to let them talk to the outside world. And next to that, we also use the common data services and the common data platform, using that in Flow in BC, from within BC, outside of BC, but mainly from with Power Apps. So if you look at our apps, this was a picture halfway of last year I made. I could find it back and I think, oh, okay, that's valuable. So if you look to the axis of less functionality or functional loaded, which normally an ISV VAR partner does, put as much function in it as we can possibly do. So function and code above it all. Of course, we have such modules still, such apps also that are functionally loaded, but we also have less functionally loaded. And then it's also challenged old-fashioned thinking, changing code instead of extending it, and also embracing the Dynamics 365 platform. So, of course, we have apps that are more centralized on Business Central, but we also have apps more on the Dynamics 365 platform, and even more on as a partner extension, for example, scanning. So a lot of our apps, and these are all code names, for example, if you look at QCK, that's our quality control app. And if you look at SFP, that's shop floor production. So these are more based on the Dynamics 365 platform, of course, tied into Business Central in the back end, but also using a lot of other Dynamics 365 platform techniques such as Power Apps, Common Data Services, etc. So here's some examples. So this is non-conformance. Here's actually, you see that the logos on the right bottom side, a mixture of Business Central, the Outlook add-in, Teams, Power BI, and Microsoft Planner. Non-conformance is actually when we get a complaint from a customer and we have to handle that. And we thought, okay, but handling a complaint is a collaboration of people throughout our customer's organization. So what tool is better than Teams to collaborate? And of course, now during the coronavirus, we more and more get adjusted to that, I guess. and maybe even you use Teams quite heavily now. And we started off doing that last year with a non-conformances module app, tying that into Teams, and also tying that in with Planner to follow up on all the tasks in Teams. So that's what we did with non-conformances, to give you an idea of what we did on the Dynamics 365 platform, not only in BC. Then the next one is quality check. Actually, I will explain the more architectural details in the next slide, but actually this is showing you that it's a Power App. Most of the data model is done in common data services. So actually there's just a small piece in Business Central. Why? Because quality control is not really, the ERP basis lies not heavily in Business Central. So why build it in there? Why not put it outside and connect it to Business Central events to have quality control checking or whatever? For example, when you receive something inbound, then you might have to check something like that's here on the screen, and you might want to have to take pictures and follow up on that. So that's why we build a Power App on that. So to give you the details, the broad details of what we did on the platform, of course, the quality check app is still in BC, but mainly leading to events. These events are passed by using an Azure function through an Azure service bus, and then on the other hand, there's an Azure function picking that up, pushing that to CDS and the quality check foundation app, as we call it. And then the quality check does all the work, and sometimes it leads to transactions that need to be followed up or reported back into BC, and that's the way back via an Azure function that calls a REST API in Business Central. So this is mainly the structure of our quality control app. So of course, be aware that delivers challenges also for deploying. Because now it's not only an app through AppSource on BC, you also have to deliver some Azure stuff to Azure Marketplace, and a Power App which you can deliver using the ALM lifecycle toolkit from Power Apps also, and that also tied in together, of course, on the same version and release management. So be aware. Then, of course, we're always looking into the next big thing, or things that come up, that Microsoft comes up, or in the IT world in a broader perspective outside of Microsoft, and we think is valuable to our total Footwear 365 proposition. So we're currently diving in a lot of Azure Cognitive Services, which we already defined a couple of them, which we're going to use in the next few models we're going to build. We're also looking into factory management execution system and digital twins, especially in food production environments. This is highly valuable. Power Apps portals was a new thing coming up that might be valuable, for example, in fresh produce on the grower perspective side. Test Studio is what we did on starting with Luc 1.5 years ago. Me creating unit tests in the same schedule as we delivered code. We also can do this now because Microsoft made this available with Test Studio from Power Apps for the Power App stuff. So we're gonna do this already. So actually, from a reconnaissance, we're already in production mode there, in test production mode, I should say. We're heavily investing right now in building up tracking and tracing in our apps. So delivering usage statistics and telemetry and application insights. We're currently doing a proof of concept to tie in Business Central CDS integration. We followed a workshop at Microsoft in Lyngby last year. I think it was in November. So that's about near-time data synchronization. Then we, for that purpose, we can get rid of the Azure Function Service Bus connections in between that, and we're also looking into durable Azure function, but that's too technical to discuss now, I guess. Okay, then we had an approach that we're no longer gonna build as a monolithic, like we had with Azure Footwear or Azure Footwear for fresh produce. So these were typical monolithic approaches, a lot of codes, all tied in together, high maintenance costs, high migration costs for the customer also. So To find and replace stuff wasn't easy for none of us all. So not for the implementation partners, not for our external implementation partners, not for our product development, and for most of it all, not for our customers. So it always took a lot of time to upgrade or migrate the customer. So that's how I came up with the business domain and app approach. So splitting it all up in modules instead of one big monolithic, but still delivering the value of combining it all. And I'm going in more detail after this slide. The basis of it all was something that came up in 2006 already, the Gartner Space Layered Application Strategy. And you can find more details about it if you Google on that. There's a lot more details on that. So actually what Gartner said in 2006, your whole application landscape, you can normally slide up or differentiate in 3 layers. The first one is a system of record. Think of your finance, your production, or your logistics. Or most of the times, these are fixed and standardized business processes, which focus mainly on operational efficiency and compliance. Next to that, you have most of the time, every company, at least we see that in the food and fresh produce area of our market, we see a lot of business critical processes, but mainly also that modules that have a strategic competitive advantage. In fresh produce, for example, how they deal with commission, handling the paying of commissioners that buy and sell goods in between. So more like brokers. So these are, and every fresh produce has its own set of rules on that. So you cannot just build let's say, a commission module and that fits them all. Actually, these are specific to almost every customer in the fresh produce market arena. So then you call these the systems of differentiation. So these need to be more flexible, more volatile, and more custom. So highly parameterized, etc. So you have to come up with a layered approach on that and an application development strategy that fits that purpose. And these are the stars, as the icon shows it. These are the stars of your application landscape. And this what makes the difference. And it's a system of innovation. We see that quite heavily. And that's where no-code, low-code systems, to my opinion, come in and fit a purpose. Because that's where you're not sure what you need, or not sure what the next step should be. So it's like your first toe in the cold water, testing the waters and see what you really need. And then with low code, no code platforms, it's very easy to try something out. And if it's really becoming a success, and I have later on this slideshow, I have an example of that. It might be a success, and then you might just throw it away and build a real application. That might be a systems of record or systems of differentiation. So that's how Gartner's Space Layered Application Strategy can work for you. Okay, then coming back to the business domain and application approach. For example, these are just a sample set. Transport, products, information systems, shop floor, quality control, operation control, CRM based and these seems to be all like packages. Of course, most of the times if you have business domains, there just might be packages, software packages available for that purpose. But most of the times you also see modules like scanning, that there might not be the right package for you, or the transport management system might not fit your need, or it's such strategic in its nature for you, and your business process are way off any standard package that you might come up with your own. So business domain doesn't necessarily mean that they align with standard software packages. But anyway, you will have a lot of business domains on your customer's end, whatever market you're in. So combining that all, I could say, okay, I'm just going to build shop floor. It's the same as building a house. I'm not going to build a toilet before I think of the house, because then the toilet would be outside. If it rains, I'm sitting on the toilet, I'm getting wet outside, right, if there's poor weather. So I have to think about building the house as well. So first of all, we thought about our Footwear 365 house, and then next to that, we think about the business domain and how they could fit together and how we would arrange all the plumbing, because they have to connect to each other. Instead of building one monolithic, they could still separately exist, even in another house, but we want to give the comfort and the safety to our customer of the footwear house and still deliver whatever business domain they might or might not need. So if they only need ERP and TMS, they don't need all the spare rooms and they don't need that capacity. And they could still have the safety and comfort of the plumbing, and it all be arranged in the safety of comfort of the footwear house. That's the whole idea behind it. So how did we build this? First of all, you need an event-driven architect, because how do you arrange that plumbing? How do they connect to each other? Instead of peer-to-peer relationships, they have to connect to some kind of hub. So that's how we came up with our food business processes. So we still define a functional layer, and that's on top of a technical layer that connects all the business domains together. Of course, there's a lot of technical details behind. I can explain that, but that's not for now, maybe another session. So, of course, it's not only internal, you need to connect to the outside world as well. You can do that on the same layers, on the same business processes, because sometimes business processes, think about ordering, think about EDIFACT, your ordering process extends your enterprise domain. So it extends your company borders. So instead of connecting internal stuff, you also have to connect external stuff. And actually that external stuff could go from one domain, your internal domain, to another. So that's where you get data migration, but from data migration, it still goes on the food business processes, the functional layer, and on the technical layer below of that. Then the next step, I have to skip one more, is of course, I want to comprise all that data from one perspective. And of course, if there's different domains, they might have different databases. And of course, I'm using the common data services as well, and I'm setting up stuff. So I see that all these pieces coming together in one big enterprise data model. And doing that gives me the ability to have real-time decision on my hub. So because they're running processes, so transactions are flowing from one to the other near time, real time. So I can do real-time decision making based on these business processes, based on the data that flows from one to the other system. That are easy decisions that I can make, almost near time. And then you have, of course, what we all know on more like the data warehousing, creating cubes, doing research decision making, for example, using Power BI dashboarding on top of your data warehouse and your cubes. And now you can do both, because you have your connection, your plumbing between data domains, and all the transactions that are still coming in the databases, whatever it is and wherever it is, still in your enterprise data model. Okay, and then on CDS here, what I already mentioned, the sample I gave with shop floor, quality control, is we have purpose-built apps. So just for one purpose, so we don't connect. Apps, to my meaning, should not be applications. They're just apps. Single purpose for quality control, for shop floor production, simple apps, because if they become applications, low code, no code, and especially things like Power Apps might not be the solution for you. You might just need to build a real application, whether it's in BC or outside BC. Okay, so that's the whole approach, combining it all, showing you the complete picture, and then let's get to the next thing, the DevOps journey. So I already mentioned it's a little bit more difficult if you're not only tying in BC. I'm hoping you're all familiar with the DevOps cycle, from release planning to coding, creating your builds, testing all the stuff, hopefully automated, because otherwise there's a lot of manual labor and it's becoming really manual labor intensive. Releasing to build and release pipelines, from build and release, deploying that to staging and operating and monitoring that, for instance, not only on BC but also on Azure, using Azure monitoring and alerting, etc. So the whole DevOps cycle, and be aware there are more dev cycles. That's actually a layered approach as well. I will explain in a few slides from this. So what are our challenges? First of all, we had a unified platform. Think about BC, Power Apps, CDS, Azure services, all the office stuff, the team stuff I was talking about. You have to create these channels. That all has to be automated when you create a tenant. So yeah, there's a lot of work involved in that. So that's first. Then of course you want to do this step by step, because I want to have feedback as soon as possible. And be aware that not everything is in place already. And not even FK, Freddy Christiansen, is ready to do it all in BC. And then of course, like we had last year, you get a disruption, for example, of multi-factor authentication. That's hard in combination with BC. We had to experience that. So that was another setback. We overcome that, and next stage. And there's much more even to that. Think about a rapid start, formerly known as rapid start. Configuration packages is a recent name. We have to configure BC and CDS APIs, because if they work together, how does BC know how to connect to CDS and the other way around? We have to set up infrastructure and configuration as codes using ARM templates, for example, for the Logic Apps parts. You can start with point and click with Logic Apps, but then you soon discover that if you want to deploy that doesn't work that way, because you cannot just deploy a Logic App. You have to go through the way, or you should go through the way using ARM templates. So if you have a few hours more, I can tell you much more about that, but let's skip it for now, I guess. But just give you an idea that DevOps in a unified platform gives you a lot of challenges. But even we coped with it step by step, so we should all be able to do that, I guess. And then there's a lot of stuff, of course, using development environments, a tester environment, to be able to have a functional consultant or solution architect or product owner test the code. Maybe exploratory testing needs to be done. Do you do that on the same container environment? Do you spin up a container after developer has done? All these kind of things we had to cope with, and all these kind of things are in place now. Then of course the apps to AppSource, but that's a whole other game, so I will tell you in another topic during the session. And then the 2 tracks, because that's very important, and also to get the train running and delivering at a steady pace. So first, the 2-track development, how we're organized right now, and we recently did that because when we were still Schouw, we just hadn't enough resources to be capable to do that. Now we're Aptian, we have enough resources to organize ourselves this way. So what we do is, okay, we do product development, and we have a GA team, a general availability team. So the product development team just does product development. They deliver new apps or new releases of apps on a WE1 schedule. So they don't do localization, they don't do translation, and they use the daily builds. And whenever they put something on stock, so actually they make the stock, so they put an app on stock, they choose whatever major and minor release they will do that on. Then the other team, the GA team, does the localization and the translation, whatever's needed for every product market combination, i.e. country in which we deliver to whatever VAR. They test it all, they test it for that market. They do bug fixing if a VAR or customer in that market has a problem. And they keep on the schedule of all the cumulative updates and the major and minor release that Microsoft delivers, and they deliver to Microsoft AppSource. So that's our current organization for the two-track development. And I would urgently say to you, please organize yourself this way if you got enough resources, because then you can keep your pace going. But otherwise, if one team has to cope with it all, you're continuously pushing your feet on the gas and then braking at the same time. So, and that's not, that's gonna give you a lot of frustration. So that's not nice. So what we did on DevOps, the whole work item tracking progress, managing work, planning work, project starts. So the whole work item tracking is done using the Azure DevOps. That's all in place. Our build pipeline and release pipeline is also in place, but we release until Azure VM. So we are able to deliver our VARs and ourselves a VM on whenever we like. So on the latest major and minor release of our apps, that's all been automated, and we could do that on your own VM or an Azure VM. And next up, we are now currently having our own DevOps team in place that's going to take care of all the integration testing for every product market combination and all staging that's acquired in every market for every VAR and for all customers, and for setting up a pre-production environment. So we prepared it all, but we do not have a process in place yet fully. So that's where the orange stuff on this slide we're currently working on. So be aware, and I already mentioned that it's a layered approach here as well. So you have the product delivery scope, for example, because we do F&O as well. It's BC, it's the combination with Power Apps, CDS, and Azure services. We have third-party partner solutions, for example, Task-led Factory for our scanning solution. So that's combining it all already. Then you have the project delivery scope from the VAR angle. They also have third-party project solutions, and they have their own on top of market extensions. For example, Isatec, our partner in France, needs a lot of extra functionality and of course a localization, but also have a lot of extra functionality to become viable in the food market in France. So they have their own extensions on top of ours. So that's the project delivery scope. And then of course you have the customer operation scope. Think about hot fixes on demand. And that combining it all, you need release planning for that. And the release planning should really be led by a DevOps department or your DevOps solution architecture or whatever, the one that's in charge of that all, because they have to bring all these parties together and demand what they should bring on the next station where the train comes running for the next release, to be able to deliver it to the right VAR, to the right platform, so the VAR can deliver it to their customers on the right sandbox and production environment, etc., etc. But I could spend another hour on that. If you start that, this is just a reminder for that. Please be aware that there's a lot of training in place for your DevOps administrator, for your DevOps developer, because you need to build staging environments, build and release pipelines, ARM templates, YAML for your infrastructure and your configuration as code. You need to have a solution architect that architect the hell out of it. And there's actually good Azure training and certification programs on that. We did that also as a start, and that will give you a head start on determining what you should do in your own DevOps cycle. Of course, don't forget, if it's not paid for, where does the budget come from? That was a problem I had at Schouw also. Not anymore though, but I had to fight for that. So if you're fighting for that, you will never get budget, because it's just becoming, the whole DevOps becomes a cost center, and it's always painful. So you need a lot of people to run that cost center. So actually you need to start thinking about becoming your own profit loss center. So they need to start earning money. And these are just a few examples of what we are doing to get some money out of the market so that actually all these services are paid for. Because this, you cannot just handle this as a side job. Okay, then the ready to go. As I told you, we did a lot of ramp up before we started working with our unskilled labor workforce. So of course our developers knew about CAL, and of course they knew a little bit about AL, but they didn't know anything about Azure architecture, Power Apps, Click Learn, which we use for our worker instructions, new design patterns, really user experience. So that's more like just the UI design. And automated testing, Luke helped us out with that. So we set up a program. We spent about 6 weeks. Then we had our exam week with whole team trying to build something just for purpose. And then we learned some more stuff, and then we started our project so that all people can start the project and start delivering on that with a little bit of confidence. But be aware, 80% of the knowledge you need, you don't have. Not now, maybe someday. So even if you start a project, be aware of that. Hey, you're building your software on a moving truck where vital parts are still missing, and vital parts during the process will be replaced. And that's on Microsoft ends, that's on your third-party ISV end, and that's on your own end as well, especially on knowledge. So think the concept of forward thinking is really critical in this, and take it on step by step. Don't try to do it all in one go, because you will just have nightmares, you will never wake up again, and you will feel miserably. So take it on step by step and accept the fact that you combine learning while you're delivering. And every app gets better and better. And be aware the product life cycle of your app is probably not more than 2 to 3 years. So you're gonna revise and release a new version of that app anyway in the upcoming years. So, and you could best do that by just publishing the app, getting feedback, and getting better at it from a customer perspective, but also from a knowledge perspective. So do a lot of tryouts and open up. As I mentioned earlier, work together with others, like the MVPs that are there in the market. Spend some money on that. Partner up with others, with your own VARs, because they have a lot of knowledge you don't have from their market, from their customers. Work together with Microsoft. I'm coming back to that later on in this slide deck. Okay, then what we do also to continuously and to foresee continuously learning, have a retrospective. So we do that on an architectural level, on a UX level, on a developer level. So always, what do we learned? Combine new stuff, have themes, set up design patterns, adapt, learn, and get to the next step. Always, when you you took the next step, try to envision the next step and start working on that with your team. Never experience a status quo, because you need to learn that you need to adapt every few months. So be aware on that and make that part of your process. The process needs true agility. As I stated earlier, we didn't do refactoring. We didn't go through the stages of complete rethink, redesign, revalidate. So complete is restart. I already mentioned that we're doing that on BC Cloud with extension API model, with combining all stuff of Dynamics 365. We're working closely together with Microsoft, and I will give you an example of what we're currently in with them in the next slide. And what we're also working with a reference group that exists of our main focus external VARs, also our main functional experts from our internal VARs, and some most common customers we have in close by. So, and that forms our reference groups, which we have contact with every week. And then we do not ask them for a wish list. No, we validate design, and we show and tell what we've done throughout the build phase. and deliver that to them so they can follow the process, but they also can say, this would work, this won't work. So it's not about the wish list, it's about validation and checking up that we're sure that we're getting somewhere. This is what we do at Microsoft. This is just an example list. So we have platform necessities. We like to do workshops because, and a good example is what's coming out in the next wave on the 1st of April. So tomorrow, it's a new setup of the sales price module. We actually came on that working together closely with Microsoft. They refactored and opened up their code, and we build our module on top of that. Now you can do that all. So what we do also delivers value to you, combining it with Microsoft. So we do this on a functional level, but also on a platform level. This is our process, going through Rethink with our solution architect and functional experts and reference group. We draw the process and the function. We do a step of functional decomposition, breaking it all down. Then we start our redesign sessions. We create use cases. We create the code and the test scripts and everything in the definition of all done. I will come to that in a few slides after this. And then we build our backlog and we validate. And if you see on the right top corner side, every sprint cycle, and actually we have sprints of 2 weeks, but our sprint cycles are 2 days. We design, we rethink, we redesign, we document, and document is coding, but also doing the definition of done. Think about the test scripts, but also think about making the worker instructions, creating the use cases, document them, and then we all sit together half an hour every 2 days after that, and we validate the combination of it all. Then we just recall and go into the next 2-day cycle. That's what we do. So within our 2-week sprints, in which we all have tasks, we have a 2-day sprints cycle that we do communicate, document, validate. So we don't write all the stuff down and just hand it off for someone to build it. No, we're all part of that communication cycle. That's on the top right corner. Then the definition of done. So this is actually our definition of done. So next to our code, we have process designs, we have entity relationship diagrams, functional decomposition, we have development kits for APIs, we use the OES Swagger that's coming up, we have the full Postman test kit, so with all the APIs documented, but also the configuration and all test scenarios. We have unit tests, as I explained earlier. We do the upgrades, of course. We try to diminish that because we're having a team now for non-breaking changes. Translation, of course, integration events for our VAR partners to be able to build on top of us, because we want to do the layered approach that Microsoft does with us. So we build on top of BC, and our partners could build on top of Footwear 365 for their extensions. And then that VAR partner could customize on top of their extensions, build on our layer to customize, to have per tenant extensions. Worker instructions, we do that with ClickLearn. So how-to videos and all the documentation. Of course, release information. We have the profiles and permission sets. You need to deliver that for AppSource anyway. Of course, we follow the last cumulative updates. We have demo data sets and also demo data scripts for our VARs and even for our customers to demo it to others. And we have our build and release pipelines that we deliver not only for us internally, but also for our VARs. Okay, to give you an example, this is the dev kit, and you see on the right hand side in the Postman script that all the setup and everything is delivered. So you get a complete Postman set to see how you can work outside of our app with our BC APIs. Then we have the worker instructions. This is just an example. The how-to videos are accompanied with that. This is, of course, a PDF. And this is our functional decomposition. So for an app, we have all these things. And then, of course, the process flows of that. Next to that, our definition of done, we also think that you need to have extra stuff. Because living in a cloud world, what would it be for a food company if they cannot connect to on-premises stuff? Like, for example, their PLCs, maybe their manufacturer execution system, their label printers, scanners, all these kind of things. Even cloud printing could be an option. So we came up with our cloud on-premise connection, which we're gonna build in the next year. So that's also, to my opinion, definition of done. Also, taking care of the data migration effort for existing customers. Services and product development should have a combined effort in delivering the capabilities of going from SE Footwear to the new Footwear 365, from going on-prem to cloud. How do you handle this? There are separate data models, so you have to combine and migrate these. And of course, there's also customization in that, but you have to deliver these capabilities through product and as services. That's also, to our opinion, definition of done. So that's also a thing we're working on. Then the AppSource and monetization.
Danny, small note, we have 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, so I'm going through the last, so I should be fine with that, I guess, because to my opinion, from a technical standpoint, this is the least interesting. So going to AppSource, yeah, AppSource is not finished yet on a lot of things, especially on monetization, on license and subscription management. You have to build in KPIs per app for pay-as-you-go. Be aware the validation process in Fargo is mainly manually. So delivering apps through some kind of pace is very challenging. Versioning is not easy. You have to deliver all kind of test scripts for them to be able to test your app, because again, I say that's a manual piece of work in Fargo. You have to think about packaging and pricing. It's quite difficult. So are we there yet? Not at all. Are we scratching the surface? Yes. Start thinking of it. You have to deliver like water flowing from a crane. That's how the customer looks at it. One price, one set of services. But on our end, it's like this. It's not easy. You have to combine it all. So we're actively working with that within Aptian, with our VARs, and also with Microsoft. But Microsoft, even for this year, is only delivering a small piece of what all the plumbing needs. So even with the commercial workplace, it's not been delivered. So you have to come up with your licensing and subscription, your monetization, your versioning, all these kind of things, your KPIs per app, etc., etc. So please be aware of that. So if you start the AppSource journey, yeah, that's a project on itself. And I would like you all to reach out to each other, and especially to us, to discuss this, to find our proper way, as we do with others. For example, we reached out to ABC Solutions in the Netherlands. We reached out to other partners as well, to combine thoughts and solutions to a proper way of working to get everything to AppSource. Yeah, to have a quick feedback cycle with your customers, we came up with a fast forward program to deliver our apps within 5 to 10 days. And that's our program for this. I just wanted to make you, to give you this piece of information also, so you at least know that we are thinking of it too. We started with this in September. We have our first 3 or 4 customers now at this moment. We're rolling out in waves, so we can learn from customers. And we set up this program so they can benefit from these apps already. And in the same way, we can learn from them, from their first initial experience as new customers towards our Footwear 365 platform. And that all wraps it up. So open for questions now.
I think you had a very clear story, because
no questions?
Not a lot of questions. There's one main remark. Let me open it up a bit more. First of all, great presentation. This is from Lars Lindberg. I do, however, have a few questions. Okay, that's the first one to come.
Okay.
Related to BC extension development for BC Cloud and on-prem. Perhaps not related directly to the presentation, The first one, if you have an assigned ISV range within the 6 million range or whatever, can you then submit to AppSource and use the same app for installation for on-prem customers?
No, you have to use a 17 million range, and we're kind of in a struggle with Microsoft. Actually, we had a call and a follow-up last week. So it's still fresh. So because we want to do the same, as we became Aptian, we had a lot of other companies that were still working on BC14 and wanted to deliver our Tessel apps for new customers as well, but their customers still are not used to cloud, so they asked, can we deliver this on-prem? At this moment, you would have to renumber it all. You cannot just deliver the 70 million range on-prem. They're not ready for it yet. They are thinking about it. They're coming up with a plan for that, but at this moment you're kind of stuck.
And that means that you would have two sources actually being the same, but just because of the numbering, you would have two sources parallel.
That's correct.
Yeah. Lars has a second question. If you can have one app extension which can be installed for both BC Cloud and BC On-Prem, you then need to go through both Microsoft application validation process and CFMD?
CFMD is optional. It has been for some time, so it's up to you. It's still valid. It will be replaced, but not this year anymore. I think it's rescheduled for after June next year, so that might take a while. Originally it was planned, it was even introduced on directions in MIA and Vienna last year that it should have been done before the 1st of June this year, but that's been postponed. So that's first of all. And if you go through the AppSource validation, you're also validated if you do that for on-prem publishing of your apps or usage of your apps. There's one tricky point in that. There's also two things. One thing is show my code, and also James Crowther and James Pearson of Techman talked about that in their presentation on Europa. It was one of the last webinars, if I remember correctly, Luc. They mentioned that too. If you do show my code false, your VARs and you yourself cannot debug, not even on-prem. So that's one thing you should think about and be aware. Now we're Aptian, it's an American organization. There are a lot. It's becoming more tedious for us. We didn't care a lot, but yeah, it's your IP. So yeah, you show your code. Then the other thing is, if your VAR wants to extend or build on top of you, they need to be in the range. So they need a developer license in your range. Otherwise, they cannot develop on top of you. Yeah, of course, if you have APIs, but not on your integration events. They simply cannot subscribe to your published integration events. So there's two things also very difficult in this scenario. It's not only the validation process. You should be fine with that. Of course, it's manual labor, so be aware it takes some time. But also about the show my code and your developer license and giving access to your VARs that work on top of your code.
Clear? We're almost at the hour. If there's somebody having one question, we can pick that one up. Lars, thank you very much for your question. Somebody might want to type in a question. And if not, while I'm waiting, if somebody's doing, Danny, thank you very much. It was very.
Thank you all. And please reach out if you have any questions or want to work together on something.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate.
If you don't find a way to Danny, you will know how to reach me, and I can link you to Danny.
Thank you for that, Luc.
You're very welcome. I think it was a very instructive, very knowledgeable presentation. So, Danny, thank you very much. To you, audience, thank you for having been here, and we'll meet each other on will be the 14th of April when John Long from Archer Point in the US will be talking about upgrading parts. Okay, thank you all.